Good. Certainly glad to have you folks here tonight, and feel love to have you every night. Wish you luck. Wish you the best. Thank you so much thank you for coming. At this time, we'll do the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mayor and members of City Council. The City Council uses the consent agenda to consider items that are non-controversial and routine. The consent agenda is acted upon by one motion and vote of the council. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at the request of a council member or a citizen with the consent of council. The consent agenda contains the following two sets of items. The first of which is the approval and acceptance of minutes and reports, and there are two sets of minutes lettered A and B. Item 1C is the disbursement of for fiscal year 2015 through 2016 City Council discretionary funds. And City Council members are provided $3,000 each on an annual basis for disbursement at their discretion towards items that meet a public purpose. Definition of permitted items that a municipality is authorized to perform. There was one set of disbursements for this period. That involved the Mayor Pro Tem Deborah Duncan's disbursement of $150 for the International Association of Chiefs of Police membership renewal. Item 2 under consent is the award of contract for transformers for ATI Powder Facility Substation to Utility Lines, Inc. and CG Power Systems. This is for the purpose of considering a contract award in the Energy Services Department as part of the substation improvements that will serve the new ATI Powder Metal Facility. City staff recommends awarding the contract to Utility Lines, Inc., CG Power Systems, in the amount of $301,000 and change for the purchase of 2 outdoor substation transformers and the delivery of services. Excuse me. Mayor and members of council, this concludes the summary of items placed on the consent agenda.
Move we approve.
Have a motion. Have a second.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that passes. To the regular agenda now. Item 3, zoning map amendment.
Good evening, I'm Doug Britt in the Planning Department, and tonight I'm presenting a zone map amendment request filed by James Allen Lee. Mr. Lee is representing Jason Bartell for the property located at 501 Charles Street. The applicant is proposing to rezone such a property from R10 residential single family to conditional district Bartell in order to utilize the dwelling on the property as a duplex. Such a property is outlined in blue, is located at the intersection of Charles Street and Hudson Street. The property is on R10, and the properties all the surrounding properties to the north, west, east, and south are also zoned R10. The one line here, as far as crosshatch area, this is part of the historic district, where the historic district starts. And the uses around the property, the uses to the north, west, and east are all multifamily uses, and the one use to the south is a single family use. The original portion of the home was built in 1935, and the home was later added on probably sometime in the late 70s, early 80s, to bring it to a total of 2,100 square feet. The applicants requested a conditional district in order to utilize the dwelling on the 0.22 acre tract as a duplex. The dwelling had previously been used as a duplex from at least June of 1998 to September 2012. Once the entire dwelling was vacant and utilities terminated for more than 180 consecutive days, the dwelling at that time could no longer be used as a duplex, which was in March 2013. Under the present zoning, the property can only be utilized for single-family purposes. The dwelling is right here. Like I said, the front portion of the dwelling was the original portion built in 1935, and then sometime later, because it was prior to us having any type of records from our permit center, and the county doesn't keep records that long, but it was added on to the back portion of the property. There's an access driveway located off Charles Street and also access driveway located off Hudson Street. This is some pictures of the property, and this is looking on the property from standing in Charles Street looking at the property. This is the right-hand side of the property, which would be toward the single-family residential dwelling, looking at the front portion of the property, front portion of the building. And this shows the back portion there. This is the other side of the house, which faces the Hudson Street. This is the front portion of the house. And this is the rear portion of the house. Shows the access door for what used to be a duplex. The land development plan indicates this area be used for low-density residential, which is typically half-acre lots or larger. The proposal is not consistent with the adopted plan, but is a reasonable use based on similar multifamily uses in the area. All property owners with 150 feet were notified of the meeting, as well as a sign being posted on property and a legal ad run in the paper. And Plan Board does send forth a recommendation for approval for conditional district Bartel or resolution of land development plan compliance with your packets for you can review and will need to be included with your motion to approve or disapprove tonight. At this time, I'll be glad to answer any questions. Also, the applicant is here to answer questions too.
One
Yes,
question,
ma'am.
Doug. That's right in the middle of public housing, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am. This is the aerial map. The Monroe Housing Authority is in here, here, and over here. There's Monroe Housing Authority in this general area, yes. And these are two single-family homes right here, and there's additional duplexes to the rear back here too.
Now, beside that house, is it single-family houses? Right
Yes,
beside?
yes, the single-family home right beside, that's correct.
Now, how long has this property been vacant?
It's been vacant since
2013.
You said 2012 earlier.
Yeah, it was last bill used for duplex in 2012, and then once it was last used as duplex, at that point in time, the utilities were terminated. They had 6 months, and that 6 months terminated in March of 2013.
So it was previously used as a duplex, is that correct?
Correct, from 1998 till
2012.
yes, September 2012.
Okay, can you give us a little history on why this is now, we have to come back before council?
As with any property in the city of Monroe, if somebody wishes to change a particular use, whether it be for residential, commercial, or whatnot, and that use is not allowed in that particular zoning district, their avenue to pursue that change of use is a rezoning. So with any piece of property, if the property owner chooses to rezone their property, their avenue is, and they have every right to apply for a rezoning. And the rezoning is this process. They get to the plan board and eventually get to city council, where y'all have the final decision regarding any type of rezone.
Is this the same owner in 2012? Was it the same owner? Is this a new owner?
This is a new owner. My understanding, this owner purchased the property last summer in August of 2015.
So do we get an opportunity to hear from the owner to find out exactly what the plan is for this property? And
Yes, he's
I'd like to be able to hear from them.
Presentation tonight.
He owns it outright now. He's already bought it and owns it.
Correct, yes, he does.
Not in a condition of whether it's changed or not.
Right.
Okay.
And let me understand, so when the owner purchased it last year, he bought it with the understanding he would be able to use it, be under a permitted use of single family?
Well, I didn't talk to the purchaser at the time he bought it, but when they came in to apply for the rezoning, obviously they knew they could only use it for single family purposes, and they wanted to try to rezone it for a duplex. So with his intention of buying it when it was on R10, it could only be used for single family purposes based on that zoning designation.
Has he done any work on it to try to get it prepared to rent out as a single family?
To my knowledge, no, but he could probably better answer that question more than I can.
That's fine. The last time I'm familiar with us considering this type of rezoning in that particular area was a property over on Houston Street, and the request was denied after a very lengthy public hearing. The mayor stated at that time that if we were going to rezone property like this, that it needed to be subject to a citywide ordinance that allowed anyone who came before us to have their property rezoned and not just do it for one individual and then have someone else come back and not be able to get it done if they don't have the type of influence that someone else might have. Did the city staff ever look at going back and looking at all of the properties that might be impacted by this particular zoning and determine if we need to go back and revisit the way that we handle these particular properties?
No, in my opinion, that matter is that with any property, like I said, any property owner, they have the ability to request a rezoning if they so choose. But the staff did not go back and look at the ones that were, and there was quite a few, 7 or 8 that were looked at, and I think mainly those were within the historic district, and this is not a historic district, but the staff has not reevaluated to look at a scheme or plan to look at all the properties that have duplexes on. We did not do that.
And the mayor, intention was, it wasn't just in this particular area, but it was citywide, because we've made some ordinances that are relevant to duplexes throughout the city. Some of them pertain to duplexes not being able to be built on corner lots, where the density or where the area would permit a duplex to be built. So, so the city staff has not done any investigations or done any work toward trying to determine if our ordinance is too restrictive in that regard.
No, we have not, but that would be one thing that we will do as far as we're already started to release the contract working with our UDA consultant to rewrite the ordinances, and that'll be something that we will evaluate during that time to see, if it's something we want to look at as far as allowing duplexes. Because some places, some places do allow them. They have certain criteria you have to meet to allow them, but some places do have requirements that you do duplexes so long as you meet the criteria. And one thing I'll add too, as far as with the plan board recommendation, the plan board did, and I forgot this, the plan board did recommend as far as the applicant install either a concrete or a paved driveway to access, because if you go out there now, the parking area is not easily defined. And so one thing that was recommended from staff and the plan board passed that recommendation along, that either asphalt or concrete driveway be provided on both Charles Street and Hudson Street to help define the parking for the duplex. But that's all, if you have anything else. So.
Did you say there's a duplex behind it?
Yes, there's a duplex behind it. This right here there's 2 duplexes on that piece of property right now.
And the other duplexes where I saw you had a pencil on it a minute ago.
This is part of the Monroe Housing Authority at this location here, at this location here. The single family home that borders it is this house located right here.
I believe it's 2 single-family houses beside it, isn't it?
Yes, this one right here is single family, and so is that right there. They're both single family. And just one thing more. This shows the map. The property is the subject property is this piece of property located right here, and then all the ones I highlighted are the ones that are duplexes or multifamily residences located in the area, and of course the ones that are not highlighted are the ones that are single family. So up to here, corner of Charles and Everett, these right here along Charles Street, this right here, these down here, and these other ones on the corner of Green Street and Huff Street.
Doug,
Yes, sir.
is this proposed duplex supposed to be remodeled, or it looks pretty crappy to me, what I saw on the board?
The applicant has said that he will is going to fix it up and bring it up to the standards, so it's fit to live in.
Yeah, but you think, but you don't know.
Right, and as far as if the council wants to place conditions on it, I guess that's something that could be possibly done.
And counsel, that we have spoken with the applicant's attorney, and they have advised that they, of course, are well aware of the obligation of the minimum housing code and would agree if the property is rezoned to a condition that requires them to bring it into compliance with the minimum housing code, subject, of course, to your 50% cost for repairs, 50% of the tax value of the structure, In other words, they're not going to be required, they do not want to be required to take a property that would already be subject to demolition and have to repair it to be in compliance. But that's something that we can defer, we'll defer it, and you can hear that from the applicant's attorney and the applicant, who are here, of course, to answer your questions.
In that regard, why is it that some landlords have told me that when the city inspectors go in, if they go inside of their property, that they have to bring it up to current code, not just minimum housing standards, but it has to be brought up to current code. And I'm wondering if that would be the case with this property here. Would it just be minimum housing standards, or would it have to be brought up to, you know, current codes with electrical, plumbing, and, you know, and those types of systems in compliance?
From the city's perspective, Councilmember Jordan, it would be with respect to first the housing code, but also though, as we are involved as building inspectors, we would require them to meet requirements for the permits. And then depending on the extent of the work required, it may require them to get to the code, but that will of course depend on what the inspection reveals. And for that, I don't believe we have anyone from our code department, code enforcement, or building inspection, but they, of course, can't give you an idea unless they actually go into the building and see that.
Mr. Majid, you said something there about bringing it up to code, and whether it be brought up to code, or how would you put it before it could be demolished? I know what I'm trying to say.
Yes, sir. I think what you're trying to say is that if the cost of repair to bring it up to code
50%
is more than 50% of the tax value of the structure, under your code, that means the property would be subject to demolition. And the property owner has, I believe the applicant through their attorney has advised me they're willing to agree to inspection bringing it up to code, subject to if the inspection would show that it would be repair costs exceed 50% of the tax value, they not be required to bring it to code. They in fact could then demolish it if necessary.
Yeah, that's what I wanted right there, that last part. You said, my question is this, and of course I know the owner is going to come up in a minute and I can ask this question, but if it's going to be that, to bring it up to code, if it goes in there and when you get your price tag to fix it up, we don't know which way that's going to be. I would hate to go into this thing blindfolded and say, yeah, we're going to fix it up, then come back and say, well, it's not worth fixing it up, it's above 50%, we're going to tear it down. I mean, I don't want to cross that bridge.
Well, the applicant already owns the property. They actually own it. They purchased it out of foreclosure. And if they were able to move forward, depending on council's vote on the rezoning, they would then have to make the determination of what they would do based on a city inspection for housing code purposes.
If by chance we rezone it, okay, it's rezoned, and they go in there and say, well, it's going to be 50% more, it's going to be worth the demolition. And we're sitting there with a house that's not going to be fixed up, and it's already zoned for a duplex.
It would be zoned for a duplex, but because it wouldn't be habitable, no one would live in it at that time. Because it is inhabitable and you'd be moving through your code enforcement process, it would move towards eventually assuming that the property owner went through the original complaint hearing process and then any appeal, it eventually then comes to the city council at the end of that process.
That's a long process. That's what I'm really saying without saying all that. You know, we don't know if it's 50% or 49% or what percentage it is. If we rezone it and they come back and say, well, it's not worth that, it's already rezoned, we came back up then, why would it be saying, yes, we've inspected it, we can do this, we can bring it up where it ought to be, and we'll do that, then make our move, if we're going to do anything at all.
What's been presented, Mayor, is the rezoning application. Earlier today, there was a discussion over the housing code issues. So the rezoning was going forward first before discussion of the housing code. There had been no request, nor petition or referral for it to be inspected. So the applicant rezoning request in the manner they were supposed to. There was no code enforcement process going on with that property. It is not under our enforcement. So it hasn't been inspected, so where we are now is the rezoning application.
I understand that. That's why I'm saying what I just said. We're in the zoning application. Are we gonna rezone it? And then come back in 2 weeks and say, well, we can't come up to this because it's gonna cost more than it's worth for us to do that? And then we're gonna board it back up?
Well, one thing to note, Mayor, is that if it stays boarded up for a 180-day period and unoccupied, it can't be used as a duplex. So as this is running through that process before demolition, if that's where it goes, it's going to be unoccupied that entire time.
Just one final question. If the council should decide to do this, it sets a precedent, for other property owners that might bring this kind of request to us. You had mentioned that there were probably 7 or 8 properties in this general area that that are currently single family, where the property owners might want to come back and have us review their requests and try to get it changed over to duplexes. Could you give us an idea of where those properties are located?
Well, some of the properties I was referring to is based on what you mentioned up as far as back previous history. And I know, friend, bring back through the minutes, when all that happened, there was about 7 or 8 properties that was within the historic district that was under scrutiny and because they were duplexes. So
Could you give us an idea of where those properties are located?
Sure. These are the properties that were discussed, and this dates back to January 2007. It was 100 Hudson Street, 507 South Haynes Street, 701 South Church Street, 200 Maurice Street, 500 East Talleyrand Avenue, 210 Maurice Street, 329 East Houston Street.
So this house is in the same general vicinity?
They are.
They're all, well, the Church Street,
Other than the church?
there's on those, yeah. The Maurice, Talleyrand, yeah, thereabouts. I mean, they're not adjacent to each other, but they're in the same vicinity. Yeah, I'd probably say so.
So,
These are the houses, the address of the houses that is a potential to want to, same zoning, is that what you said?
No, well, I mean, these were houses that lost their conforming status for
Okay,
duplexes.
right.
These were similar houses to situations now that they had been duplexes and they were vacated and utilities terminated for more than 180 days, which then they lost their status for duplex.
Has any of those come back and want to be rezoned?
No.
Are they all occupied as single-family homes?
That would, I hate to say that would be my assumption, but they're not duplexes.
I mean, are they occupied?
I don't know.
And what year was that, Doug?
2007?
7,
Yeah, 2007, January 2007.
thank God, before I got on council.
What does that mean?
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, sir. This is a public hearing. At this time, I have some folks signed up, and I will call them in the order they are signed to speak for and against. Item, Mr. James Allen Lee.
Mr. Mayor, staff, council members, I'm James Allen Lee, and I'm here on behalf of my client, Jason Bartell, sitting here as the owner of this property. And I'd like to address several of the things that I've heard here today. Kind of start off, I will say that I grew up at 606 South Church Street, which is about 4 blocks from here. And I would say that the Church Street is just as close as Talleyrand or any of those others. I'm very familiar with this area, and I own a business here in downtown Monroe, so I'm very concerned about what happens in our town. my client bought this property the last day of July, closed on the deed of this past summer, 2015. And I heard some things about, hey, well, this is going to take a while, this is going to do something. You know, he bought this property, tried to figure out what he could do with it, came, applied for a rezoning, is moving forward. This has been sitting there boarded up. I went down there and there's, you know, grocery carts and broken bottles and stuff where it's been vagrant. You know, this property has been vacant since 2012. My client has purchased it and now wants to make a viable use out of it and turn it into something other than what it is now. And I will say that, you know, you have in your ordinance, chapter 153, which sets out what the minimum standards are, and we are most certainly willing to put that as a stipulation on the conditional zoning, but I don't think we need to, because that applies to all properties within the city of Monroe. You have the authority to say if it's going to be habitable or not. It has to meet these minimum standards, and he will have to bring it up to that. Another important thing to state here, and I've read some, and I know there's a lot of people here with the historic district, and I grew up in the historic district. I was telling Mujib, I probably shouldn't tell this here, but I remember my mother had a very low clothesline in front of our lot that we bought. We bought the old Houston house right beside our house at 606 South Church Street, and they said you couldn't have a fence. And we had torn down a dilapidated house next door, and we were all young kids, and we'd come over and play ball and all that, and they didn't want us running out into the road on Church Street there with cars passing by. She put up a very low clothesline and made some shirts with the Ghostbusters. This was back in the Ghostbusters days, said Historic District Busters. But, you know, I understand their plight and I understand what they're saying, but I don't think it applies necessarily to this situation. And the reason is this is going to be rental property. If the market dictated that, you know, you could build, you know, $150,000, $200,000 homes there and sell them, then that's what somebody would take and do with this property. But it's surrounded on three sides by the housing authority. And there's a nice single-family dwelling just to the south of it. When they built that, this was sitting there as a duplex. You know, what he could do now, if this zoning request was denied, he could turn that into a single-family rental. Well, what do you think is going to happen with a rental that has 2 kitchens and 4 bedrooms? You know, right now he's here and he's saying, hey, I'm going to fix this up. I want to make, and it is, it's more profitable for him to rent it as a duplex than it is as a single-family dwelling. But the difference is he's willing to come in, you can put conditions on here to pave the drive, the parking areas, those things. He has to bring it up to your minimum standards. You know, and as far as code, the current code, no, you know, it's grandfathered. It's an existing structure. If he makes improvements or has to demolish and rebuild, any new construction would have to be in the current code. What's there now, and anyone in the historic district can tell you, my great grandfather built the house at 501 South Church Street, where Dr. Leitner lives now. My grandparents lived there until 2002, when he purchased it. You know, when you go in and start wanting to bring a historic, older building up to current code, that means you got to rip all of the wiring and everything else out and replace it, and that's just not feasible. I tell you now that, you know, that would be cost prohibitive. But any new structures that were built, and it all has to be safe. If you read in your ordinance, you already have those things in place. So I would implore you to allow my client to get this blight back up and make it a usable property here within the city. And it is in an area, and to address the issue about different people coming up and making different things. Look, I'll agree with you 100%. I don't like how zoning things are set up, that we're going to take a district and say that we want low-density residential in an area that is filled with duplexes. You're just asking, you know, for issues to come up. You know, when this comes before and you're looking at rewriting the code, I know I met with some of the code right officials here looking at, you know, it's one of the things that I think needs to be addressed within the ordinance, because it's incumbent upon a property owner to request a rezoning. You know, with some foresight and looking, you could look and say, hey, this area already is full of multifamily duplexes. Maybe this is the area where we ought to keep that. You know, I'm available for questions. My client is here. He's happy to answer any questions you may have. And we would just ask that you
Mr. Lee, I wanted to ask a question. Where does Mr. Bartell, where do you live, sir?
Can I come up?
Sure.
I didn't sign the sheet. You want me to sign the sheet?
Give us your name and address for the record. We just need it for the record, please.
Yes, sir.
Just tell the clerk.
You can say
do it, Frank.
Stand there and
Say it
tell
right
the
here.
clerk.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. My name is Jason Bartell. I went to Western Union Elementary School, Parkwood Middle School, graduated from Parkwood High School, graduated from South Piedmont Community College. I live in Locust, North Carolina now. I have other rental properties in Monroe. What was the question?
I want to know where you live. You answered that. You told me you live in Locust.
Yes, ma'am. I live out in Locust, right down 200.
How many rental properties do you have?
In Monroe, I have probably 10, 11,
How many duplexes?
one, not including this one.
Okay.
And the thing is with the getting the power turned on, if it's been 6 months, you go down, you go over there to the permit center and you say, hey, I want to get my power turned on. And they say, if you take them a duplex, they say, we can't turn your power on because you got I have 2 separate meters for water, 2 separate meters for power, 2 separate gas meters. And they say, you can't do that. You have to convert all that back together as one and you'll be a single family. So that's why when I bought the property back in, I believe it's August or something like that, I didn't go over there because I knew that they were going to shoot me down. I had to find an attorney and come to the planning and zoning and the city council and all that. I bought the property on their assumption that it was a duplex. So then I found out, I came up here and I found out I couldn't do that, and so now I'm here.
If you don't mind me asking, where is your other duplex? And I know, you don't have to answer that, I'm just curious.
Yeah, oh yes sir. It's at 1711 Polk Street, you know where Mr. Laney Stack lives? Right there on the corner of where the Curious Cat, right behind the Curious
Yeah,
Cat.
okay, that's fine, thank you.
And, okay.
One question, are you a hands-on landlord or you take responsibility for your tenants? I think that's one of the issues that we've been addressing is sometimes we have some absentee landlords and they don't take care of the property, tenants move in, they cause problems and that sort of thing. So tell us how you plan on addressing that.
Yes ma'am. I'm a licensed general contractor in North Carolina. I've been licensed since, I've been in business 22, since 2001, licensed general contractor, licensed plumbing contractor since 2001. Since 2006, I was a licensed utility contractor. I have currently a house with the Housing Authority. Miss Carolyn, I think her last name's Kennedy. She could vouch for me that I hadn't had any problems out of tenants with the Housing Authority. Yeah, I mean, I'm a hands-on guy. I mean, I have a plumbing company that I run full-time, and if we have an issue that day, we usually send one of my punch-out guys to take care of the problem. So I'm definitely hands-on. I mean, I work every day.
So any improvements that you have to make, regardless whether it's single family or duplex,
Yes, ma'am.
you can do it yourself?
No, I can't do the electrical myself. I'm not a licensed electrical contractor, but I'm a licensed plumber, so I can do the plumbing and I could hire an HVAC guy. But see, that's the whole thing. I have two separate electric meters, so that's going to be really expensive to put those two together and make one for this whole unit. And then the water is not so bad because I can just tie that together. And then the gas, I have 2 separate meters for that, and then that has to be tied together for the heating and air unit. So it's kind of costly to convert it back to single family. So that's where that's at.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
We've been dealing with this issue here since 2007, and it's pretty common knowledge, by the folks in Monroe who purchase single-family properties and also multifamily properties, that if a property has been without utilities for a period of time, for 6 months, that a duplex is going to convert back to single family. And I'm trying to figure out how that got past you if you deal with rental properties here in Monroe.
Well, I purchased a property about a month ago in Burlington, North Carolina. It has 4 units in it, and when I went to ask them, I told them the problem I was having here. They looked at me like I didn't know. They thought I was crazy. They were holding hostage the power. City of Monroe is holding hostage the utilities And like Burlington, like other counties that own property, and I asked the zoning and everything about that, they don't even, they're like, once it's zoned that, it's zoned that. But I think I know where this zoning came from, and I believe it came from the, or this revert back after 6 months, came from the Roldan family. Y'all, anybody know the Roldan family? Well, when I was a kid, the group went to Parkwood Middle School, all that good stuff. They used to ride around Mercedes, BMWs. They had Roldan 1, Roldan 2, Roldan 3 on the back of the car. I don't know if anybody, y'all know what I'm talking about. But they would come into the homes and they would just put duplexes in, and I guess people got upset, and they would just make duplexes out of every little thing so they could get more money, rent money, you know. And so I think the council at that time got mad and said, we're gonna, you know, once it's all more than 6 months, then we're gonna make y'all revert back to single family. So I feel like I'm being held hostage for, you know, because it is multifamily all around there. I don't think I'm asking for something too outlandish, but I feel like I'm being held hostage for something the Roldans did back in.
Well, I'm not sure that's where that came from the Rodan, so.
Oh, okay.
Let's don't.
I'm sorry.
Well, I go back to my question.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
If you've been purchasing properties in Monroe, how is it that you would not be aware that we have an ordinance in place that says if the utilities have been turned off on a duplex for 6 months, that it reverts back to single family?
It was advertised duplex for sale in Monroe.
Who had it advertised?
I don't know if I did a screenshot, but it was with the real estate lady. I'll have to get you her name and number, but I'd be more than happy to.
So you purchased it from a realtor,
Yes, sir.
and the realtor did not inform you that that was going to be a requirement?
No, I don't believe at that time, but I have to look back at my file. I can actually get the file and send it to your office, what it says.
I'm just trying to make some points here.
Okay.
That's all.
Yes.
Well, Mr. Burrow, did you say when you purchased that you knew, and I may have misunderstood you, if you may have the minutes over there, that you knew wasn't any point in going down to the meter place or whatever you described because you knew that you couldn't put it together?
Yeah, if you have a duplex, you can't put it together.
Well, that answers the question, did it not? Did you not know that?
Oh, well, maybe that's what he's asking. Yes, sir.
So you knew that in the beginning?
Oh, yeah. If you go down there, you're going to give you duplex. Yes, sir. That's right.
Yeah, okay.
That's why you had to put the meters. That's why you had to put the meters back together.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
All the electrical. Yes, sir.
And I think there are two duplexes. Those are public housing, and I don't think that's considered multifamily. These public houses all around.
I didn't understand.
Oh, I don't know. That's
You
out of my
said
league.
it was duplexes all around. That's incorrect.
I think there's duplex behind it, isn't it?
Two. I said there are two.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have one last question.
Yes, ma'am.
So if the city council does not approve this rezoning, what do you intend to do?
Well, I can, revert it back, do the electrical, do the plumbing, and rent it out. But I can get the zoning, I can put a roof on it, put a sign on it, make it look really good.
But if it's not approved, you mean you won't do it for single family?
I'm not saying I will, and I'm not saying I won't, just to be honest with you. I just have to, I have to go through the zoning process first,
In other words, the chances are good that you're not gonna spend a dime on it then. Is that what
No, if you rezone it,
No, the question was for her was, what's your intention? And it sounded to me like the intentions are, well, I'm not gonna do nothing but change the electrical back and rent it.
no, well, that's the single family aspect. I need to get through the zoning process and see where I'm at. I'm okay if y'all want to put some stipulations on me, that's fine. In the planning and zoning, they want me to pave or do, paving or concrete, I'll sign paperwork. I'm not hard to get along with, I promise.
And again, I would make the point that 153 here, regardless of whatever use it is, it has to be brought to minimum housing standards before it can be rented.
But
Yes.
my understanding is somebody's gonna make a complaint to get that inspection, have they not?
No, sir. Well, it's typically we're complaint-based. However, I have this feeling that given that the planning director is in the room, it's entirely possible this may enter the code enforcement process, depending on the outcome of tonight's voting, perhaps.
Well, I'd like to see the property fixed up. I'd like to see somebody living in it. I mean, that's just me. It's not doing anything but it being an eyesore right now with boarded up. So, and it's been like that since in 2012. So, I'd just like to see some improvements.
And I agree. And I would like to say my client's purchased this property this summer, and since he purchased the property, he has been making moves to try to improve the property, make it useful, and make it not be a blight on the area where it is. It's been there since 2012.
Some of the ones that are still boarded up on it.
Correct. They're boarded up right now.
I know.
He came here, and to address your question, well, why come rezone it first? Because he needs to know what use he can put the property to. The highest and best use for that property is as a duplex. That is the least cost, highest return that's there. And that's how property investment happens. That's how communities improve, is by increasing the value. Well, it is. That's kind of how the world works. And that here is the least expensive way for him to be able to do it. The less money he has to have combining systems in that property is more money he can spend on fixing the property up and be able to get a return on that investment.
That's right.
That's it. And again, if he has to go single family, right now, by right, he can go get it to minimum housing standards and rent it as a single family residence, 4 bedrooms and 2 kitchens.
I have a question. If it were a duplex, do you plan to do more than the minimum standards?
Yes, ma'am. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Okay, so if you do more, what conditions can we place and what can we do to ensure that would happen? I guess to follow up on Ms. Anthony's question.
Well, that's a little more difficult. The city only has a minimum housing code which says you have to get to the minimum housing code. It is not a maximum code. It is incumbent upon the property owner, if they're representing to you that they will do that, that is for them to do that. And if they then return later for some other request, perhaps you would remember if they didn't meet the obligation they suggested they would. However, what condition you could impose is requiring them to comply, to bring the property up to the minimum housing code in accordance with a code enforcement division inspection. With the, of course, restriction, I think they've said that they're willing to do that, subject to it not being a property that would have to be demolished. So all you can do as a council is impose a condition of requiring it to meet minimum housing code, which it would have to do anyway before it could be rented.
You said something about a roof. Does it need a roof on it?
It's not leaking, no, sir.
But you said you put a roof on it. So, did you
I
say
will,
that you
ma'am,
would?
yes, ma'am, if you sign up, yes, ma'am. Roof and side look real good. And they put a fence down to single family dwelling, that's to the, I don't know if you east, west, north, right, or whatever. And then pave or concrete those parking spots.
If the applicant is saying they will do these things, those conditions can be part of your rezoning. For example, if he is saying he would put a new roof, he would put the either concrete or asphalt driveways in, that can be part of your conditions. But as I said, in terms of the housing code portion of it, you cannot require him to go above, you cannot say, because we are not allowed to enforce it beyond minimum. We are happy with the maximum, but unfortunately, the General Assembly has only allowed you minimum housing.
But if he agrees to do that, then
I'm gonna give you my word, I mean, I'll sign paperwork, but if I take something, I don't do it.
They can put a condition if you say you put a new roof on it.
Yes.
And you'll put a fence down that side.
Yes.
You can make that a condition
Lisa?
and do that.
I just want to make it real clear to council too. The condition can indicate, as the city attorney said, to the minimum standards. I want to make it very clear that this does not mean that staff can require pressure washing, painting, landscaping, and beautification type efforts. It's strictly the minimum standards to bring the house to a habitable condition.
We understand that, but he's saying, I will do that.
Right. I just wanted
I
to
mean,
make it
he's
clear
saying
in
that,
minutes said
yeah,
that does not include paint or landscape or
Right.
any type of beautification.
I understand we can't make him do it, but that's what he's saying, that, you know. That was his answer to Ms. Duncan over there, so I don't know. Okay, any other questions?
You had some people that signed up,
I'm sorry.
were some other people signed up?
Oh, yes, I've got some more. That's why I'm, any more questions for these people? Hearing none, thank you very much.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Travis Green of 314 Haines Street.
I'm just with them, so no further comment.
Okay. Also have, it looks like Mary,
You may want to ask if there's anyone anyone else in
Do what?
favor. If there's anyone else in favor, Mayor, because these are two in favor, and then before you go.
okay, I assume that wasn't. Are there anyone else here that wants to speak in favor? Hearing none, we'll go to the other one, I believe it's Mary, is that, I'm saying that correct?
Mayor and McMahon.
Okay, we recognize you.
Mayor and Council, thank you. My name is Mary McMahon. I live at 107 West Houston Street. I live a half a mile from the property. Gosh, there's a lot of things I want to say. I kind of took a lot of notes as I heard him speak. One thing that when you talk about minimal standards, I feel I'm a half a mile from the property in the historic district. My husband and I have spent a lot of money trying to maintain our property. I have to come in front of the board if I want a COA and pay the city money to fix it up to maximum standards. So it doesn't make sense that someone's going to come here and set something up for minimal standards when that is the gateway into the historic district. I know when some of you were nominated and ran for city council, a lot of it talk was about moving Monroe forward. And I really feel like a decision to rezone this will be moving Monroe backward. He's owned the property for 6 months and there's not done one thing to it, not even clean the trash up. I drove by the other day, there's a TV in the yard, there's bottles, there's a shopping cart, and now I feel like he's holding me hostage to say, I'll only fix it up if you allow me to have a duplex here. I have property next door to me at 105 West Houston that was a duplex, that is now a single family, and I've already talked to Doug at the planning board because I believe more than one family are living there. I can't prove it. I've had him in and out of the house, but you could set a precedent here that that could change now. And that house is falling into the ground. They haven't done anything to repair it. So I'm just really asking all of you to really think twice about, and please do not pass that to rezone it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Robert?
My name is Robert Yanacek, 513 Everett Street. I was listening to the gentleman speak, and a couple of topics came up. I'm not sure if you guys reviewed the draft minutes from the planning board. A lot of good items were brought up in that meeting. One of the things was this duplex, if it were turned into a duplex, doesn't meet the standards for duplex for parking, buffer zones, landscaping, and obviously the surface of the parking lot. It's listed as a 6-bed, 3-bath, which means it would have to have one parking space for every bedroom, plus one additional for each unit. So that'd be 8 spaces for that to fit on that lot. And obviously there's not enough room for that without doing some other things. There's not a 70-foot buffer between that and the property next to it. It says in the minutes that obviously it won't meet that requirement. What was disturbing is, and I'm going to read a statement here in a minute, that he wants to fix it up and spend the money. But in the actual minutes from that meeting, they are totally opposed to putting the asphalt down because they wanted to put minimum money into it and bring it up into a rentable condition. To be a rentable condition, unfortunately for a lot of these houses, is minimum standards, and we all know that that is not a positive outlook for the city. I'll go ahead and read what I was planning on reading before I came with that other information, but come before you obviously in opposition to the zoning request for the property at 501 Charles Street. It's been sitting vacant for more than 180 days, and obviously as a result, it's now zoned for single family. The City Council originally implemented the 180-day rule in an attempt to eliminate the escalating number of poorly managed rental properties, specifically duplexes in the struggling neighborhoods. We're a city drowning in so-called investment properties, as all you know. And it's an excellent tool you guys have in helping reverse that destructive trend. The property was purchased by the owner while it was zoned as single family. Whether the owner was aware of the current zoning or not, it was his responsibility to use due diligence prior to making a land purchase. The property was purchased for $20,000. Whether he was financed through a bank or not, I don't know. Whenever I went to get a house and a mortgage, the bank wouldn't give me a penny unless they did all the research to see how it was zoned. So it was paid for cash, maybe not. It says that the property, from reading the planning board meeting minutes, it's clear the current owner wants to invest a minimal amount of money into the property to make the most profit. Simply to bring it to rentable condition in plain language, I'll read that as minimum standards. The planning board also pointed out that duplex does not meet the land requirements for parking spaces, parking surfaces, buffer zones, screening. It's also clear from the board minutes that the owner does not want to comply with those basic requirements if it were to pass. City Council, specifically Mr. Jordan and the mayor in the past have voted in favor to decline these zoning changes after it's reached the 180 days. In addition, from my research, it appears that the City Board of Adjustment has always voted in favor of the 180-day zoning rule requiring the property to remain single-family dwelling. Also, the 180-day rule only works once, from my understanding. If you allow this to turn into a duplex and it goes vacant and he rents it out, if it goes vacant for another 180 days, that no longer applies, from my understanding. I could be wrong, but that means that once you vote, if you vote, hopefully not, that this becomes a duplex, from here on out, it will always be zoned the new zoning. Let's see. From the aesthetic perspective, this property is located on the main entryway of the East Historic District. Do we as a city really want another minimum standard absentee landlord property to be one of the first things visitors see for decades to come? You as Monroe City Council have the ability and tools to move Monroe forward, not backwards. With a no vote such as this, I urge you to vote in the no for the rezoning of 501 Charles.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Teresa? I hope it's all right to call you Teresa.
I'd rather be called Teresa than the Trash Nazi. So
That what?
The Trash Nazi. That's one of my current nicknames, evidently. My name is Teresa Eamon. I also live at 513 Everett Street, which is just around the corner from the property in question. I'm asking that you do not approve the rezoning of 501 Charles Street. The east side of the Monroe Historic District and streets right around it are struggling in so many ways with neglect and an exploding number of poorly maintained rental and duplex properties, as you can see from the map. As Robert said, it's our understanding that this is irrevocable, so even if the property is demolished, it could be replaced with, as I understand, another duplex. And that particular area has got a fairly high crime rate. We don't need to add any more to it. And I say this from personal experience. I have seen on numerous times people being arrested in the property. They didn't live there, but they live around it. Honestly, this property, based on the pictures, probably should have been demolished before it was purchased for 20 grand. It's even if we put 50% of its value into it, that's 10 grand. I don't know if any of you have ever tried to renovate a house. 10 grand doesn't go very far. So if we're going to bring it to minimum standards, I don't think any one of us in here today would be willing to live in a house that just meets minimum standards. We wouldn't want it for ourselves, we wouldn't want it for our children, and I don't think we should want it for the others who are choosing to live here in Monroe. If you're conflicted about what to do, I ask you the simple question. If this property was next to me, what would I want to see happen to it? Would I want another duplex in the entryway to the historic district and in an area that is already drowning in them? There are many people, both renters and owners, who desire better for where they live, and they're counting on the city officials to make decisions that will have a positive impact on Monroe, and this is your chance. And honestly, you know, I'm personally getting very, very exhausted by people who don't live in our neighborhoods, that are struggling, who want to come in and make money at the expense of the people who have to live there, at the expense of the city who has to pay to clean up the mess, whether it's a clean out or a dilapidated property that comes up for demolition. Far too many of these people don't want to put a dime into these properties, and then it's left to us that are living here and the taxpayers that have to pick up the tab. And I may be one of those crappy historic districts residents, but I moved here because I wanted to make a difference and make things better. In my opinion, people who come in and drop the minimum amount of money into a property and then live in Locust or in another city or another state and don't put a dime into the property other than what is basically needed are not what Monroe needs, and I don't think we need to encourage that behavior. Thank you.
Any questions, council? Thank you, ma'am. Looks like Jay Smith, Post Office Box 158. Am I saying that right, ma'am? Okay.
Good evening, I'm Jennifer Smith. I live at 109 West Houston Street. I'm in total agreement with what has been set up here. We believe, my husband and I have lived here in the historic district for 30 years and we love it. I just hate to see this blight continuing on. And when the people that do take good care of their properties are subject to all kinds of scrutiny, we put in a driveway, we got a permit for that, but we had to pay an extra $500 to have the driveway tinted, because that's what was required. And I'm just wondering if this gentleman puts in a driveway, if it's concrete, he'll have to have it tinted. I just think this is getting totally out of control and out of hand of letting this continue on. And I think it's a huge mistake to let this revert for the council to put this back as a duplex. Thank you.
Any questions, Ms. Smith? Thank you. Jeff, R1. Jeff.
Good evening, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen of council, mayor. I've been here before you guys for the same issue 7 years ago for a non-conforming property that asked for the duplex registration after remaining vacant for 180 days. After a public hearing like this one tonight, the landlord was not allowed to convert his property back to a duplex. The city disallowed duplexes years ago for a reason, and the present climate makes it imperative the city continues to enforce this. Our struggling city is oversaturated with rentals, and as more homeowners leave Monroe, these once family-owned properties are turning into investment properties, such as what this gentleman would like to do with 501 Charles. I'd like to let all of you know that my wife and I purchased our home in the district as an investment too. An investment in our future, which over the course of the past 10 years has all but faded to a memory of the dream we had when we moved here in 2005. I appeal to your sensibilities, members of council, and as a 10-year resident of the Monroe Historic District, I had high hopes for a revitalization of the district over the past decade that so far has never come to pass. I live in an area off of Charles Street. I have watched the decline of our properties and that have been not managed properly, and tenants that have not been given background checks. Since the past year, we've had 3 murders, 2 stabbings, a shooting within a 2 or 3 block perimeter of this property. My point I'm trying to make here is the homeowners of the district live in our investment. We've worked darn hard to maintain our investment while the rentals around us fall into further decline. The landlords in my area do not live in their investment properties. Many, such as this gentleman, doesn't even live in the county. And the few homeowners left in the city keep your tax base barely afloat as more and more rentals drag your tax base further into an abyss due to the landlords whose only investment in their properties is in their bank account while their properties are falling into further disrepair and neglect, and in some case being demolished by the city at the taxpayer's expense. I'd like to point out that, and it's been stated, I guess this has been stated, but if this is approved, it will always remain a duplex. There is no benefit to the community by adding another tenant-occupied property to our already oversaturated rental community with the high hopes of the city and low expectations of the homeowners that had invested their blood, sweat, and tears for decades in Monroe, that this landlord will actually follow through with his promises.
Any questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. James Hughes.
Yes, sir.
Recognize you at this time, sir.
My name is James Hughes. I live at 1104 Woodland Avenue. Evening, everybody, council members, mayor. I live at 1104 Woodland Avenue, and I've seen rental properties that, the owners put, go to the minimum standards for living. And I just don't think it's fair because, where I live, I try to put, me and my parents, we try to put as much money as we can into our household to keep it looking good and make the neighborhood look good as well. And I think our neighbors try to do the same. The duplexes is just going to stay a duplex. The gentleman, like, you know, he had a lawyer, nice little spiffy guy trying to come up here and tell us, you know, why he wants to build a duplex. But if he really wanted to build his case, why didn't he show us any pictures of his other properties he has in other cities? But I just think that, you know, these duplexes, like, I've seen this happen in Washington, D.C. before, like where my grandmother lives even. Duplexes, all that happens is it goes through a phase of, it looks good at first, then it continues to go down and down and down until it reaches rock bottom. And I just don't want that for my city. You know, it's great to have, you know, people who want to invest in properties, but you want people with the right intentions, the ones who want to, you know, go ahead and actually make this neighborhood look good and, you know, and make the neighborhood grow for the better, or just let it continue to decline along with the rest of the properties around here. And these absent tenants and stuff, they're just causing a huge problem in the city. I think we need to take a stand here and make sure that this doesn't happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Hughes? Thank you, sir. Steve, Mr. Duncan.
Thank you for hearing me tonight. Steve Duncan, I live at 611 Lancaster. And I've heard some reasons, and I've heard you know, an impassioned plea to have this thing rezoned. But what crosses my mind is just a simple question. Why? The city has passed some zoning ordinances and it's been in place for a long time. And they work for the city. I've heard no reason tonight that makes this property any more special than any other. So, Mr. Bartell's already said, you know, if this is denied tonight, he's going to bring it up to code and use it as a single family. So, why change it? Why make an exception to our city ordinances, our zoning ordinances, just for this one property? I've heard nothing that makes this property any more special than others, with the exception that this will benefit Mr. Bartell financially. So, again, I've heard nothing to justify rezoning this property. So, that's all I had. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions? Thank you, sir. Lisa, I'd like to ask you a question. Someone brought up about parking and so forth, and I believe they said it 8 spaces or something. Am I saying that? Robert, was that you brought that up? Was it 8? I want to know about the parking.
There's some controversy that if you look at the sale price and the realtor thing, it shows a 6-bedroom, 3-bath. And the code says, the rental code for a duplex is 1 space per room and then 1 extra space per unit. So it'd be 6 plus 2 more would be 8.
How about that?
Yeah, there's that was clarified. He clarified the plan board meeting too. It's reflected in the minutes also that the unit is total of 4 bedrooms. So there would be, it talks about having 1 space per bedroom plus 1 visitor space per unit. So what there would need to be as far as 3 parking spaces for each side.
3 for each side?
Correct.
Total of 6?
Correct.
Are there room over to put 6 parking places?
It's a small lot.
I mean, we'll recognize you in just a minute.
Yes, sir.
You know, probably 3 on one side. It's probably doable. I mean, it's not going to be a parking lot where you have back room. I mean, it's like your driveway to your house. They're not striped, but you can fit, you know, 2, 3, 4 cars on it. But then, you know, and that's part of the justification was for the plan board requiring him to pave it as far as you can, so you can define the parking. So because the typical parking space is typically 20 feet in length. So and usually they're 9 feet wide, so 9 by 20. If you had a driveway that was 60 feet in length, that would accommodate 3 vehicles.
What size is that lot? You said a minute ago what size it was.
The lot itself is 0.22 acres, so it's because from right here to right there to the existing gravel driveway, it's 16.8 feet. So he could extend that further, and then on this side right here, the driveway on this side is actually in front of the duplex, and what my recommendation would be when if it's rezoned as far as to move the parking to put adjacent to the duplex rather than in front of the duplex. And if it's to the side of it, you can easily have a driveway that would be, because the lot itself is 62 feet, you can accommodate 3 vehicles on the other side, for sure.
Doug, would that leave him in the yard?
Do what?
Would that leave him in the yard?
Yes, it would.
Okay.
Yeah,
Anybody
Mr.
have-
Mayor, why don't we have staff here, or Lisa, either one? I keep hearing from some of these people that if this property is rezoned conditional district Bartell, that will be some type of permanent zoning. And I don't believe that is correct. Is that right or wrong?
What happens tonight, your options are either to approve it or to not to approve it. If you approve it, it would be zoned for a duplex forever. Yeah, until such time somebody wants to come. Now, it would be rezoned for a duplex until somebody want to come and propose something else, or let's say that the way, staff's allowed to make minor deviations, but let's say that 5 years later he comes in and wants to tear the duplex down and rebuild something brand new that's going to exceed the square footage of the duplex right now. If that was the case, we would require him to go through and amend the conditional district to go before council again. But as is right now, if it's approved and he doesn't want to demolish it, want to leave it as is and just make what necessary, repairs along the way, it would be rezoned for a duplex.
Okay, and let's suppose then that if Mr. Bartell sells this property, his zoning conditional district Bartell does not go forward to the next owner. Is that not correct?
No, it runs with the property. The conditional district runs with the property, not the property owner. So he could sell it to me and I could sell it to 20 other people, and it runs with the property, not the property owner.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Is anyone else who would like to speak in favor or against?
Yes, sir, I would.
You'll come and identify yourself. Would you address her with, thank you.
Okay, my name is Fred Howell. I live at 401.5 West Franklin. And I just want to make a couple of points in that there have been studies over the years that said one of the problems with this town, too much rental property. Well, I know it's still going to be rental property, but why make it two rental properties? It's just bad precedence, what it is. Secondly, I own rental property, none in Monroe, but in various other places. I own single wides, I own single family homes, I own duplexes, and I can tell you one thing for sure. You are going to have people keep up the property better. No matter how bad a renter they are, they'll do better if they feel like this house is theirs. If they're sharing it with somebody, it's a problem all the time, constantly. And I know that from pure experience. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Mayor, if there's no one else, I'd like to just make a comment. I rode by the house along with the mayor and the mayor pro tem, and I'd just like to say that it is disappointing that the current owner has not at least cleaned up the yard. I mean, the yard even in itself looks terrible. The property looks terrible. And is there anybody else that wanted to make a comment? If not, I'm going to make a motion.
Actually, Mayor, before any motions, you need to close the public hearing.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Mr. Anderson is still technically part of the public hearing, so he needs to close that hearing.
Okay, at this time, we'll close the public hearing, and we'll take action, and council got anything else they want to say?
Well, I'd like to see Mr. Bartell clean that property up. Looks like that you're not going to get what you want, so unless I'm fooled. So I would like to see you clean this property up and maybe prove people wrong and show that you have good intentions and you intend to be a responsible landlord. And I think that'll help a lot if you do that, because I surely don't want it to stay the way it is right now, and I don't think anybody does. So hopefully you will clean it up. That's all.
Okay.
Mayor, I make a
Yes.
motion that the request be denied.
I second.
I have a motion and a second for the request to be denied. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
And Mayor, at this point, you do need a conformity statement, you're required that as you've denied it, you need to also state whether or not it is consistent with the adopted land development plan. And I believe in this case, the rezoning would not be consistent. If that is one of the justifications council would have for denying it, you need a statement to show consistency.
I so state that, Mayor, as a part of my motion.
So you need a second for that, Mayor. You need a
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that's passed. Anything else? All right, we'll go to item 4. Zoning map amendment request for property 1502 Concord Avenue.
Good evening, I'm Lisa Stywinner, Planning Director of the City of Monroe. I'd like to bring before you a zoning map amendment request by George Martinez for property located at 1502 Concord Avenue from general business to conditional district BV Auto Sales. I'd like to first orient you to the subject property. It is highlighted in blue. It is located just directly north of Pedro Street and directly before the intersection splits to Secret Shortcut and Concord Avenue. The site is approximately 0.22 acres and currently contains an existing 840 square foot building. Subject property is zoned general business. Adjacent properties are also zoned general business. The applicant is requesting a zoning map amendment from general business to conditional district BV Auto Sales in order to allow automotive sales as well as retain all uses allowed within the general business zoning district. Once again, the site is located off of Concord Avenue. It is accessed off of Concord Avenue. The existing building is located in the center. There, I believe, are 3 parking spaces in the front and 6 in the rear of the building. Applicant is not proposing any physical changes to the existing building, parking lot, or site. I'd like to now provide a couple photos of the property. This is photos that in the front of the business and then in the rear.
It's not a minute interrupt you. Is that not a car lot before, or is it still there? There's a car lot right there on the right. Is that the same? Behind the
This
convenience
used to
store?
be a car lot for years, but the past few years, I think it's been a thrift store. Currently, right now, I think it's vacant.
I was thinking.
But a couple doors down, there are automobile repair business, and I believe maybe 2 of those right
Yeah,
there.
right behind the convenience store. The convenience store sits right in the corner of Concord Avenue and Pedro. Right behind that, I thought there was a car lot or was. But anyhow, we'll get into it.
It was.
Okay, thank you.
The subject property is also located within the recently adopted Concord Avenue area master plan, which indicates that this area has a land use designation as residential. Staff's interpretation of the proposed use is that it is not consistent with the Concord Avenue area master plan and is not a reasonable use of the property due to the limited display and parking area. As you can see, it is highlighted in red. It's proposed for residential in this area with some mixed use just directly north of it and some general business to the west of it. All adjacent property owners have been notified of the proposed use through mail, and a rezoning sign has been placed on the property that is in accordance with the North Carolina General State Statutes. Although staff recommends against the proposed project, Planning Board did provide a recommendation of approval that the zoning map amendment request be rezoned for property located at 1502 Concord Avenue from general business to conditional district BV Auto Sales, including adoption of a resolution that the Concord Avenue Master Plan compliance on the condition that the property not be used for automotive maintenance, repairs, or a body shop of any sort. I'll be happy to answer questions, and the applicant is here to answer questions as well.
So you said that's right in the Kerr Street redevelopment plan?
It is located within the Concord Avenue redevelopment plan, formerly known as the Kerr Street plan.
Question. Planning board did recommend, right, with
Yes,
those
sir.
restrictions?
Well, are they not a car lot there at this time?
No, sir.
It hasn't been for some while.
But at least that is the highest and best use for that.
But in the plan, is that not to be part of the gateway and you recommend residential?
The land use designation for the area that was proposed within the Concord Avenue plan is geared for residential. Concord Avenue Master Plan is a long-range plan of how the area grows and develops over the next 20, 30 years. It is a community-driven plan. There are various different ways the plan will be implemented. And to your question, does the business look better than some of the other ones on the street? Yes, it does. Does Mr. Martinez seem like to be a good business person? Yes, he does. But as a planner with a recently adopted vision for the area, it's our job to look at the land use designation to base our decisions, because that is one form of implementation of the plan as properties come vacant, or there are proposed uses that are not allowed by right within that particular district that requires a special rezoning process. That's our time to propose the implementation of the plan. It's our opportunity to implement. Are there other ways the plan will be implemented? Yes. The city put in money in the budget to do various forms of implementation improvements, public-private partnerships with developers, but one way the plan does get implemented is parcel by parcel. And
It's a start.
So to be clear, you're staff is against this, is that right?
yes.
And planning board's for it.
Planning board recommended approval with the condition that the property not be used for automotive maintenance, repairs, or body shop. It would only be automotive sales only.
Is the owner here would like to speak? Name and address, if you will, please, for the clerk.
My name is Jorge Martinez, and I live in Walnut Street here in Monroe. I selling cars since 2000, and this is my dream. This location, it used to be a car dealer a long time ago, and I bought it in June of 2012. It was abandoned. It was a bunch of junk in the rear, junk cars in the rear. I get everything. I change the roof, get a permit, get a new electricity, and fix the place, because that's my dream, that I can save some money and put my business in it. Lately, I rent somebody for a thrift store, and property, I try to do the best I can. The only thing I ask for is sell cars. What I tell them before, I don't want to do no body shop, no repairs, nothing, just 6 or 7 cars, period. If I had to sign an agreement or something, and any conditions they can do it to me, I go ahead and do it. I got 2 kids in college, and that's want to be my business in order for making my life. I'm open for any questions, anything you wanted to know. I'm here. And
You said you've been in the car business since how long?
Since 2000.
Where is your?
I used to work for Anson Auto Auction with Danny B. Jordan, and then I used to work in Hamlet, all the way up there with Robert Lindemann. He got a Carolina Auto Exchange right now, and I used to work with him, and then Pristine, where now it's just People's Bank, and right now I work in Old Charlotte Highway, and that's basically what I need, what I knew, and what I like to do. This property right here, what I hear is it's a residential. It's a grocery store on the corner, and then it's my property. Then after my property is another business, and then it's a car dealer, and then it's a body shop. Right here, with this is the residential part. The owner of the residential part asked me if I can move, because I put a fence in it. I can move like 15 feet away from his property. I moved my fence all the way up here in order that he can go ahead and pass through the cars and everything. So I just went ahead and put my fence and fixed my yard in order to make a better look. If anyone wants to pass by and check how it looks like, I cut my grass, I clean everything, and it's, I mean, I turn the lights at nighttime and try to be a nice place. So I'm here to open any questions.
Okay.
Are you selling cars now on Charlotte Avenue?
Charlotte Avenue, yeah.
So you do have a location?
No, I work with somebody else. They got a shop and selling cars. Yeah, I always work for somebody else, but now it's time to do my own, and I really like to do it in the right way.
Where on Charlotte Avenue?
Right there by Williams Park, that lake, the little lake across the street from there.
Okay. All right. Council, have any other questions?
I just have a statement.
Yes.
In that plan, in the Kerr Street redevelopment plan, it's hoping that since that's the gateway for Monroe, to change the appearance. And as you said, you can do it parcel by parcel. I understand that that's your dream. It's just that it does interfere with those plans.
Okay. Anyone else have a question?
I would agree. I appreciate his entrepreneurship and the fact that he would like to own his own business and that kind of thing. But this area has been targeted for some while, tens of years, in fact. And we have just recently, within the last less than 3 months, I believe, adopted this Concord Avenue redevelopment plan. And as our planning director has clearly stated, it has to begin somewhere. We have allocated money to be spent in this area in the last fiscal year, and I would hope, since we all voted to move this plan forward, that there'll be more monies put toward this redevelopment as well. And that is, it should be, I would hope, our vision for this area. And it does have to start somewhere, and sadly some tough decisions have to be made. And so I support Mrs. Anthony in the fact that I believe that we should stick to this plan.
Okay, so what about the business besides what they want to do with the business?
Pardon me?
The business that is existing now, what do they want to do with those business? I mean, they want to stay in the same place?
Ultimately, we'd like for all of them to go away.
Oh, go away.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in my lifetime, I don't know whether that will happen or not. As Lisa says, this is a long-range vision, and in this kind of plan, it typically works slowly. It's going to take a lot of money. It's going to take some, hopefully, some public-private cooperation, and it will take years.
Even
possibly.
if it take that years, if it take years and it's a long trip, you don't let me work at least for 5 years until you decide or you get what's going on in there?
That's a good question, and I'll defer to our planning director in that.
I do want to point out, if council chooses to deny the rezoning tonight, this piece of parcel is still its own general business. So any uses allowed within the general business district, Mr. Martinez would be able to still utilize his property for any of those businesses. He's just requested an automobile sales, which currently right now is not allowed by right within the general business zoning district, therefore requires the rezoning process.
And what I try to tell you is I don't want to be a body shop or mechanical shop. I just want to be cars ready for sale, cars clean and ready just for sale. If I had to sign an agreement for 5 or 6 cars, I can sign an agreement to you and let you know that I just got 5 or 6 cars clean and ready. And I just want to be a good look and the neighbor, because I mean I don't try to do something bad.
Lisa, so if you wanted to do an auto mechanic shop, that would fit in with the, that would fit in with it or no?
No, I don't want to do mechanic shop.
Well, I know that you don't, but I'm asking her.
No, any type of auto-related business.
So
would
anything to
require
do with
a
cars?
rezoning process. Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions, gentlemen? Here, none. Thank you, sir.
Mayor, I move we grant the
Well, I'm not through with the public hearing.
No.
Okay, is anyone else who would like to speak in favor? Anyone who would like to speak in opposition? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and take action.
Mayor, I move we grant the request. I think it's a reasonable request.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'm gonna second that. I just, he pulled at my heartstrings, and I think, you know, when you give him a chance, and I know it's not what we want to do, but I think we give him a chance.
Is that a second?
That's a second.
I have a motion, a second. All in favor? One, two, all opposed?
No.
So that'll fail. Item 5.
Hold on, Mayor.
I'm sorry.
We just wanted to verify that was in opposite, it was Duncan Keziah in favor, then in opposition, Jordan, Kilgore, Anthony, Anderson, and Gordon. Is that correct?
Yeah, I hate that it's not zone where you can go there too.
Okay. Mayor, what we need now is what you've had is not an action. You had the motion to approve the application denied. What you need now is a motion to disapprove the disapprove the zoning map amendment to move forward. Because right now what you have is no action. We would prefer that if you that take some action, either approve it or disapprove it. The approval has failed. It appears from the numbers that disapproval would pass. So it would be the suggestion of staff that you have a motion and a second to disapprove, and then if that passes, we'll talk about the consistency statement you would need as well.
All right, have a motion. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Have a motion. Have a second.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Opposed.
Okay, 2.
And Mayor, now you need a motion saying that this disapproval is consistent with the Concord Avenue area master plan.
Okay, have a motion on that.
So moved.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
That it is not, and let me just clarify, it is not consistent. I want to make sure, I may have said is actually the statement you want to make is not consistent.
Consistent, okay. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, 2. All right, item 5, federal legislative priorities.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good afternoon.
Nice to see you all again.
Nice to see you.
Thank
Nice to
you.
have you down from Washington.
Thank you. I am very happy to be here. I may stay longer than originally planned.
Okay.
I appreciate Larry's invitation to come down and talk with you about the draft federal agenda that we have put together for the calendar year 2016. Just to give Mr. Anderson a little background, I'm a partner with the Ferguson Group and have worked actually with the city of Monroe now for 14 years. This month is our 14-year anniversary of working together. The city was a client of the firm's before I joined, and then as a native Charlottean who joined the firm, I sort of glommed on to the areas that were close to my hometown. So I appreciate the opportunity to have been working with you all for this period of time and look forward to a successful year to come and years to come. Each year, typically what we do is I come down to Monroe and sit and talk with your staff, your department heads and other staff, as well as the city manager's office, and identify the projects that your departments are working on, and try to figure out if there is some way that we could be of assistance in moving those projects along at the federal level. And so what this federal agenda is, really is a summary of the projects that your staff has identified, as those, and as well as the action item or the programs that we have identified that could actually move your projects forward. Additionally, if you recall, back in the day of the earmarks, of course, it was we would do sort of a list of requests for federal funding and go up to Washington, D.C., meet with our members of Congress, ask for their support in the appropriations process, and then wait for the earmarks to be published, and we were very successful in that process. Now that there are no longer those earmarks or congressionally directed spending, we've really had to change our course. And what we have been doing is by way of is focusing on federal dollars by way of the grants process, whether that be at the federal level, state level, or private and foundation monies. We also, as a local government lobbying firm, it is our practice to look at federal policies and legislation through the eyes, through the lens of local government. So determine what, if a bill is introduced, how is that going to impact local governments? I'll give you a more recent example and an update on that. One of the things that we talked about, spoke with Larry and Mujib about this at the end of last year, last fall, I guess. There was a bill that was introduced that was in response to a regulation that was sort of that folks weren't really familiar with, that came down from the Federal Reserve and the Office of the Comptroller. And essentially what it was is it was a list of items that could be considered liquid assets by a financial institution. One of the things that was left off of that list that could be considered an asset by a financial institution were municipal bonds. We talk all the time about the necessity of preserving tax-exempt municipal bonds, as those are really a very formidable way of getting large infrastructure projects funded. The problem is you've got this new rule that's coming down that financial institutions have to have a certain amount of assets, and what is declared part of their assets did not include holdings of municipal bonds. This is a concern to local governments all over the country because that's going to make borrowing costs for local infrastructure projects much higher. We alerted city staff to this bill, and frankly, we even reached out not just to Congressman Hudson, but to every member of the North Carolina congressional delegation, and only one, Congressman Pittenger, who represents the Charlotte area, sits on the House Financial Services Committee, and so he was aware of the bill. But frankly, most communities and the members that represented those communities were not aware of this bill or this regulation. I am very pleased to say that HR 2209 that would fix this issue, allowing certain municipal bonds to be considered liquid assets for financial institutions, that bill was passed yesterday. So, we're seeing different ways to claim a win. I think what we need to do, and what I think we've done a really good job, is being creative and thinking outside of the box about the types of issues that impact Monroe. Can we put a dollar figure on that and what that's going to save the city of Monroe? I think that would be very difficult. But I do think it really is, for that specific issue, is a step in the right direction. And I will say, and Mayor, thank you, and thanks to your staff for pushing it through. We did get a letter drafted from you to Congressman Hudson asking that he support the bill, and he indeed became a co-sponsor of that bill. So we're now moving to the Senate, and hopefully we'll get that approved. But what we wanted to do today is, this evening, is to allow you to comment on the draft federal agenda and for you to adopt it. This really is a working document. It is really my guide for what I am kind of keeping an eye out for in Washington that can help you as you promote and move forward some of your initiatives here in Monroe. So it is a guide, but I do want to make sure that it includes all of the priorities that you have that you see could have some federal assistance. One of the things that I'm not going to walk through every project. Please feel free to ask any questions. I know it's getting late, so I don't want to keep you all, but I do appreciate the time and attention. The Monroe Fire Department, just for your information, Chief Fowler has been great to work with and has been very aggressive in trying to secure federal grants. Last year we applied for 2 grants under the AFG program. None of those were successful, but I will tell you we had debriefs with the staff in the FEMA grants office, and they basically said, you were right there. I mean, we only had so much money and we funded these and you're right there, so keep trying. And once we, fund these other projects, because it's a data-driven process as well. So we have been real aggressive and will continue to be in applying for these FEMA grants. There's also a number of legislative items that we've identified that could benefit firefighters and EMS personnel in Monroe. Working with the police department, we have not been as aggressive in the grant space, but there are grants available. The DOJ Justice Assistance Grants, just so you know, that's a formulaic grant program that comes through the Governor's Crime Commission. So it's a matter of really just drawing down those grants that are available to the city of Monroe. There's currently a solicitation out for Office of Violence Against Women grant. And then, of course, we also look at private foundation grants. One thing that I did want to bring up that we may want to consider adding, in the last year, there have been 2 orders that have come out of the Department of Justice that really have pulled back monies that are seized through the asset forfeiture process. And that really does impact local departments because the sharing of those the asset forfeiture funds really does help departments fund equipment needs and other needs. So I have, working with other clients too, been working with the IACP, the International Association of Chiefs of Police, as well as other members of Congress to really to express their concern with DOJ's actions in pulling back these asset forfeiture funds. So that would be a recommendation that's not currently on the agenda that we could add. I do think it would be helpful for us to identify the funds that may be lost through this asset forfeiture issue and express that to your congressional delegation and have them reach out to the folks at DOJ. I know there's been a big push from IACP, from chiefs of police all over the country that have really focused on this issue and working with DOJ just in the last couple weeks. But I think it's important for you to get involved too. So that's just one thing I wanted to add there. And I think all of you have a copy of the draft federal agenda in front of you. If you switch to page 2, I mean, we've had a lot of conversations this evening about the Concord Avenue area master plan, and I have a copy of that. We actually, I have a director of, basically the director of economics, environment, and grant services. He kind of plays a lot of roles, but anyway, I've asked him to work with me as we go through that master plan to identify various areas within the plan where we could try to secure federal funds, foundation funds from the state. On the last item here, Sutton Park, Industrial Park, number 3, Eastern Zone Gas Project. Those are projects that were identified by Chris Platay, and we plan to work directly with the Economic Development Representative for the EDA, who is, she's actually in Atlanta, but she represents the North Carolina area, just to talk to her about what the needs are in Monroe and figure out how EDA can be helpful in filling some of those needs. It used to be that these grants for EDA grants were quarterly, and now they're accepted on a rolling basis, so which is actually gives us a lot more flexibility, which is a great thing. If you switch to page 3, I just wanted to point out one thing is, you know, without federal, without earmarks, Congress has really tried to figure out different ways to provide innovative financing assistance for large infrastructure projects. The first one, the first sort of iteration of that was called TIFIA, which is a transportation related financing structure that really is just, it's a long-term loan that is that has very good it's a very good loan program for large infrastructure projects. It has been so successful that they have actually copied it in the water and water resources arena, and it's called WIFIA. One of the things about these large programs is they do fund such large infrastructure projects that they have a pretty high minimum project cost. It is for WIFIA, it's a $20 million minimum project cost. TIFIA, it's $100 million, if I'm not mistaken. But the good thing about this WIFIA program is they have they are allowing you to cobble together projects, even unrelated projects in any state to meet that minimum. I know in talking with Russ Colbath, he actually has his colleague in Concord also has similar or has water-related infrastructure needs. Neither Monroe nor Concord meet that minimum, but they could work together to try to bundle together a package to apply for this financing. So just to give you an idea of some other things that we've been doing. And then if you will turn to page 4, I've been communicating with Brian about one of the very few federal transportation discretionary pots of money, if you will, is the Transportation Alternatives Program, and the Recreational Trails Program is part of the Transportation Alternatives Program. And that is run out of the North Carolina Division of Parks and Recreation. They're really the state administering agency for those federal funds. And the pre-applications for those funds are due next week, and it's my understanding from our communication today that Monroe will be submitting a pre-application for the Recreational Trails Program, and we are ready, able, and willing to help with that process. That's really, I mean, again, I don't want to go through everything, and I'm happy to answer any of these questions on this. If you have any projects that you would like, or programs that you would like to be added to the federal agenda, of course, I'm happy to hear. And happy to get any questions from you all. I do, and Mr. Anderson, I want to make sure, one thing I want you all to know, we send out every Monday a legislative report which gives a summary of the legislative items that may be of importance to local governments, everything kind of that happened the previous week, and an outlook for the coming week. And I believe everybody should be receiving that on council. And if you're not, please do let me know. And if, and I don't know if it was, we probably should add your name as well. So I apologize if you're not getting that. But if you want it, I will add your name. We try not to to drown you in too many emails, but I want to make sure that you're getting as much information as you need.
Thank you. Comments, questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Appreciate your report.
Thanks.
Anything we need to do down there in Washington to help along, let us know what we need to do, because I know we've got a lot of irons in the fire, so
You
to
do.
speak. And maybe, we have been successful before, and maybe we will be, I'm sure that we will be successful.
I'm
If,
certain.
Anything we can do as a council or a city to help, please let us know.
Well, and I thank you to you and your staff. I mean, I think that, again, members of Congress, your, House member and your 2 senators, they really do want to hear from you, and they want to hear how legislation and policies impact Monroe. And so, just getting that letter to Congressman Hudson about how that municipal bond bill could impact Monroe made a big difference. And, he wasn't the deciding vote by any means, but I think it's really important, and he needs to understand. And I'll tell you too, they ask all the time, what can we do to be helpful to Monroe? So let's give them things to do to help us. So, all right,
Great.
good.
The council needs to adopt this, to have a motion to adopt this plan.
So moved.
Have a motion, second. All in favor? Aye. It's adopted. Thank you so much for what you
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
Item 6, refinancing certificates. Ms. Lisa?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Excited to bring this item. It's always nice when we have a good opportunity, and the current financial market conditions are favorable where we would like to refund our certificates of participation. What that is, in a nutshell, is just the debt that we have on the city's natural gas pipeline. There are substantial savings. The present value savings, if we refinance, is approximately $2.5 million, and it equates to about $152,000 a year in cash flow savings. And actually, when I drafted the report, the market is continuing to improve in our favor, and the savings are even higher than this currently. Of course, that can change as time goes on, as the market fluctuates, but it's looking really good. We are looking to lock in rates with the local government commission about mid-March, and from what I'm told, we should be right in a good window to get favorable pricing. We have had preliminary discussions with the LGC, of course, to feel them out and make sure they were on board. And we have a team of professionals assembled to complete this transaction. They're listed in the staff report. By adopting the resolution that is proposed tonight, it will allow the city manager and the finance director to proceed with negotiations to refinance this debt, and it will authorize the finance director to file the application with LGC for its approval of, this would be the first amendment to the financing agreement. It would authorize the finance director, with advice from our city attorney, to retain the assistance of the professionals deemed necessary to carry out this resolution. And we would need to call for a public hearing on February 16th at 6 p.m. to approve the First Amendment and the proposed financing. This new debt will be called LOBS, Limited Obligation Refunding Bonds. Due to the timing, it's a really compressed time frame. I was not able to take this to a committee. We needed to move it along really quickly. Staff is recommending adoption of this resolution to allow us to move forward on this project.
So move.
Second.
Have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 7, recommendation of appointment, reappointment commission.
Mr. Mayor and Council, the Citizens Appointment Committee met February 1st and recommends that the council make the following appointments. Monroe Tourism Development Authority, Laura Sabatino. Parks and Recreation Commission, Carolyn Ferguson.
That is the motion coming from the committee, and I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? You're done. That's passed. Thank you very much. Item 8 is public comment period. I have Ms. Jennifer Smith signed up. Yes, ma'am. Come to the podium, please.
Good evening, council, again. I have a petition that I have gotten signed by the residents and businesses on the particular streets of Parker Street, which would be the corner of Lancaster and Parker to Sunset Drive, and from Lancaster, from Charlotte Avenue, Lancaster to Monroe, and Houston Street. And I have residents' signatures and businesses' signatures to add to the city directory to abolish skateboarding on these particular streets. I understand that the records haven't been updated since 1997, and I think there are some signs around the courthouse area where skateboarding is not allowed. There's a lot of gang and drug activity that's starting up. They seem to congregate, and I'm talking 25 to 30 kids at a time in the summer or after school at the corner of Lancaster and Parker, where the First Baptist Church is. And 2 elderly people have been knocked down. They ride the sidewalks. They're in the middle of the street. They bring curbs to jump on. They've even taken a bench that was for the children, I guess for the after-school care there at the Baptist Church, and jumping and running off of it. The police have been called numerous times. They run them off, but they continually come back because their argument is it states in the city directory that these streets don't affect them, and they can skate there if they want to. It's just been more prevalent of abusive, vulgar language used at 9, 10 o'clock at night. You're trying to sleep, and there's the slapping of the skateboards and all of this just menagerie of noise and stuff going on. And, you know, on a darkened night, that street, Parker, is not well lit. And if you come around Lancaster, off of Lancaster onto Parker, and these kids, one of them's going to get hit one of these days. I mean, they just occupy the sidewalk and the street. And we just would like very much for you to add these streets, maybe even the entire district, because I don't know where it will move to from there. I had Alice Jewell's coughing. She said that she's just running them off all the time. McEwen Funeral Home, she said they will jump on the rails, they get up on the actual porch and skateboard across, they run them off of there. It's just becoming an extreme concern, and we'd very much like for you to address it.
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
And I have the names.
Okay, if you'd like to leave them with us, be glad to take those. If you will, just leave them with the clerk there. And thank you. And I would ask the city manager, the lady on the end. Right. I would just ask the city manager to look into this and see what we can do and give us a report back, but we'll check into it.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Is that George? Oh, George. Yeah, signed up. 309 Walnut Street. Would that had been, I believe that would have been. That's what I was thinking. That's who that may be. Okay, that completes that. Is anyone else here who would like to address the council on any issue? Yes, ma'am. Come forward.
Teresa Eamon again, 513 Everett. Just with what Jennifer said, I think it's really important also when you're looking at this to understand that maybe these guys don't have anywhere to go with their skateboards. And so in addition to saying no skateboarding in the city, because I've seen them like on the courthouse and stuff, and it is very destructive, maybe we need to find a place and a way, and maybe a sponsor or someone to help build a skateboard park. Because downtown Waxhaw. And 17-year-old boys have a hard time getting there. I think we need to find ways to entertain the youth that are here, maybe out at the park that's over, that always floods. I can't remember. Dickerson Park, there's a lot of land over there that maybe something could be built, and it would move them out of the downtown area, but still be a positive enforcement instead of something negative of you just can't do it, get out. We don't mind that you do it, but you need to do it where it's appropriate. And in the community that I came for, it really made a big difference. When they moved them all over there, the police could monitor that area instead of trying to catch them all over breaking the law. So that's just something to throw in there, that maybe it's a way for Monroe to do something positive for the youth.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else who'd like to address the council? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Have a motion, do I have a second? Second. All in favor? We adjourn. Thank you very much.